All right, listen, I've worked in radio for a long, long time, and I can tell you radio stations usually give away lots and lots of free stuff to their listeners. But one station in Ottawa is deciding to give away something more, a baby. Joining me now to talk about this is Newstalk 1010's Jerry Agar. And Jerry, I first heard about this actually, it was about a week or so ago, and I kept saying to the people who were telling me, no, I know this radio station, they do things like this, but then you come to find out it's not a real baby, it's just like a doll that behaves like a baby. But it does sound like they really are giving away a baby.
Well, first of all, would you like to win?
No.
Okay, just checking.
No, I'm good.
Okay, I've got 5 children. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yes, but, well, okay, technically they're not giving away a child because that would be illegal. But what they are doing, apparently, and this radio station is not one I'm familiar with, and it's not one in the chain of radio stations that I work for. Not that we don't have radio stations that would do this, but the radio station is apparently offering actually to pay for in vitro fertilization. So there's an article, a column by John Lovesey, I think, got to make sure I get the name, Andrew Lovesey, in the National Post, taking great exception to this. And I don't understand why somebody would be upset about it unless they are people who object to the idea of in vitro fertilization in the first place, because some people think that's wrong and immoral, and so at least they would be consistent. Andrew Lovesey does not. In fact, he apparently thinks highly of the practice. He thinks this trivializes the whole thing. I think if you're a couple and you want to have a baby and you need the treatment, the fact that a radio station might pay up to $35,000 for 3 treatments would be a godsend, so to speak.
Absolutely. I have to admit, yes, when I first heard about it too, I was like, what? That's just, oh, I don't know. You know, there's that initial kind of feeling of discomfort because it's not a concept that, you know, is out there every day. But exactly as you put it, I mean, someone's going to be, you know, hopefully very happy. This is something that if it succeeds, you're going to make a couple extremely happy. I would dare say for a lot of people, there is no lottery jackpot on the face of the earth that would compare to this.
Well, no, and when he says it trivializes the sanctity of life, I can't imagine that a woman would win this and just say, oh, what the heck, I guess I'll do it. I mean, you and I both know from our years in radio, Jackie, that people will win prizes without even knowing what they won. They will just call and say, what did I win? Mm-hmm. You know, we say, hey, you're the 7th caller. What did I win? I mean, they just respond. But if you said you've won free in vitro fertilization, a woman who does not want to have a baby will not do it.
Right, it's not like it's going to be forced on her.
Yeah, that's right. This isn't like concert tickets you never use. You know what I mean? Because that happens too. But so I think ultimately they can hopefully find somebody who really wants to have a baby. His other argument against it is that people, if they want to have a baby, should be able to afford to raise a baby. I agree with it. And he's saying if they can afford to raise a baby, maybe they can afford the treatment. You could afford a baby and still not want to spend $35,000, or even if you could spend it, you'd be very happy to have somebody else provide it for you.
Absolutely, and you know what, the $35,000 for the in vitro, I would assume, unless you get it financed, but I mean, that's like a down payment on a house. That's a lump sum. It's going to, the cost for a baby is over the, you know, the lifetime of the child. It's a lot different. And you know what, actually, that sounds extremely elitist. I would agree with the first point that if you're going to have a child, you should be able to afford to have the child. But to say if you can afford $35,000, then that's the cutoff point for affording to have a child, that's kind of elitist, I think.
Well, of course it is. And I'm very much, and in fact, I aggressively support the idea of people being able to support a child before they have it. I take great exception to this idea that too many people seem to have, that somehow you have a right to have as many children as you want, and then the taxpayers have an obligation to pick up all the expenses. I disagree with that entirely. Also, whether or not taxpayers should support in vitro fertilization through taxes is yet another argument we could have, and we could have reasonable arguments on both sides of that. But in this case, they are really offering something that might, in fact, be the most wonderful prize a couple ever won.
Absolutely. And listen, I'm feeling, like I said, after the initial kind of, that seems kind of weird, I'd much rather a radio station pay for someone's IVF treatments than you or me have to pay for it, exactly like you said, through taxes.
Yep.
And Jerry, look,
absolutely.
It's got to be said, this radio station, I am familiar with them. I worked at the radio station next door to them. This is the same radio station that shortly after it went on the air a few years ago offered up the pregnancy test, Britney Spears' positive pregnancy test. They got a hold of it through somebody who had apparently gone through Britney Spears' trash, and they offered it up for auction. So I mean, this is pretty much par for the course. This is actually a nice thing for this radio station. They usually do things that are a little bit different. So I take it your radio station isn't doing that, but I'm sure you guys are you know, offering lots of good stuff. Jerry, thank you so much for joining me today.
I'll run it by management now that you mention it, but thank you.
Get on that. That is Jerry Agar.
Win Jerry's baby.
Newstalk 1010. Okay, so many jokes running through my head, not enough time.
Goodbye.
Jerry Agar from Newstalk 1010. You can catch his show each and every day on newstalk1010.com.